Hi all, today we'll discuss about Java latest interview questions, Java with Spring Boot microservices. So the first question is, what are the latest features in Spring Boot 3x and Spring Framework 6x? So what all are the difference between 3x and 6s or latest features and all? So this one, the answer. So Spring Boot 3x and Spring Framework 6s introduce several new features. So what are the features is there? Like Java 17 baseline, Java 9 support, and then native image support, then improve observability with micrometers, Kotlin and Spring Boot AOT, ahead of time processing. So these all are the features which is introduced in Java 17. Sorry, Spring Framework 17. Spring Framework 6x, which is introduced Java 17 and all. So these all are the main difference from the 3x to 6x. Now the next question is, what do you implement distributed tracing in a Spring Boot application? To implement distributed tracing in a Spring Boot, use a Spring Cloud Sleuth with Open Telemetry or Jenkins. So we need to add the dependency for that distributed tracing related, and then either Jenkins or micrometer tracings and all. And after that we have to enable this tracing in YAML file. So in the YAML, we have to create YAML for this, run a Jenkins server, then send the tracings and all that. Now the next question is, how do you handle database migration in a Spring Boot with Flyway? So the Flyway is a version control tools for the database migration. So we need to add the dependency of Flyway first, and then we have to configure Flyway in application.yaml, and after that we have to create SQL migration script. So the SQL migration script will be stored in SRC main resource DB migrations and all path. And after that, Spring Boot automatically applies the migrations on a startup. So this is the way where we have to migrate this database. Now the next question is, how do you implement event-driven microservice using Kafka with Spring Boot? So event-driven microservice, if you want to configure, then add the dependency of Kafka in pom.xml. Then we have to write this producer configuration, the producer config class, Java class we have to write. In that we have to use some annotations like configurations, bean annotations and all, where we have to create a Kafka template. Now we have to send the message. For that we have a Kafka producer service class, where we have to send the message by using based on the Kafka template. So the send message, topic name and message. And then we have a consumer config class which have to create a consumer configuration config.java file. There all the configurations will be there based on this topic name, group id, and Kafka listeners will be there at the rate annotated with Kafka listener. So that we have to create a event driven architectures using Kafka. Coming for this next, how do you secure a Spring Boot REST API using auth2 and JWT? So use the dependency of Spring Boot starter auth 2, then enable JWT authentication in application.yaml. So that YAML JWT authentications we have to introduce. And then after that we have a secure endpoint using Spring Security. So we need to write this configuration class. So the security config, there we have the security filter chain, security chain, some we have to write. Yeah. Now the next question is, how do you implement a circuit breaker pattern using resilience forge using a Spring Boot? So for that, resilience forge provide fault tolerance for the microservices. So add the dependency first in pom.xml or Gradle, whatever will be. Then enable the circuit breaker in application.yaml, and then we have to wrap a method with circuit breaker at the rate circuit breaker annotation. So in the service layer, we have at the rate circuit breakers where we have to mention the name, fallback methods, and all. We have to create a method, and then yeah. Now the next question is, how do you optimize a Spring Boot microservices on cloud deployment? To optimize a Spring Boot microservice on cloud deployment, we need to use these all are the things. Use a Spring Boot AOT compilation to reduce this startup time. Enable Spring Boot actuators. Monitor the microservices. Use micrometers with Prometheus. Collect the metrics. Externalized configurations. Use environment variable or config server. Use Docker and Kubernetes. Deploy microservice in container, and then enable horizontal scaling. So use my Kubernetes HPA, horizontal pod autoscaler. So these all are the things which we have to discuss. Is all related for the microservices. So latest microservice interview questions with the real time experience. Thank you.